Alrighty. Okay, this is definitely a bit sooner than I expected to upload, but this video is kind of a birthday gift for a friend's aunt. So, happy birthday! This is gonna be a long one, so bear with me. Pun kind of intended. Because you know there's a bear. Yeah. I know it's not funny. Anyway, this is another drawing based on my friend's book that I read a while back. The first drawing and video that I did for her was the one, I think I titled it Discord, but it's the one with the two girls in the snowy scene holding hands and covered in blood. Gorgeous blood. This one is a different character from the other two. She is an archer and pretty awesome. It was kind of fun trying to get her pose right because the friend was there was a kind of pose that she was supposed to be doing, and I wasn't entirely sure how it was supposed to look based on the book's description. So I ended up having to go through several different drafts, if you will, before ending up with the right sketch, which should be on the screen now. Although, to be honest, this was like only the third archer that I've drawn in my life, so I did have a bit of a struggle with it. Anyway, the character's name is Jane, and in the book, Jane fights a bear. I won't really say anything other than that, but it was a pretty awesome fight, and I definitely commend my friend for coming up with all the details in such a fight. Oh wow, English failed me there. But it was very fun to read, and also I enjoy the opportunity to illustrate certain things from my friend's book, and I'm glad that she enjoys my style so much that she has kind of enlisted me to do so. Although I would definitely enjoy being paid for this, I am doing this for free because friendship and just because I love the book. And I loved it so much that I actually really enjoyed working on this quite a bit, though I was slightly under a time restraint, and I hate time restraints, but it was worth it if the birthday girl enjoys this. So, if you do, then yay. If you don't, then I'm sorry. In other news, I have like 15-ish. No, 20, I think, more minutes to come up with more words to say, so wish me luck. Prior to doing this sketch, I actually did a whole bunch of studies of bears, so I was able to draw this bear from memory, but I'm not good enough to do it again because it was kind of fresh in my mind at the point of this sketch. But one day I will be able to draw them from memory and have no struggle. This is not that day, though. I was actually at my friend's house when I was doing the studies, and she got to watch me find pictures online to use and also interpret them into drawings. So I hope she enjoyed that. Oh, the background. I liked doing the background. Usually I get stressed out trying to figure out how to go about backgrounds, especially forest ones, but I figured this one out pretty easily and swiftly if I do say so myself. And I do say so myself. Essentially, it was just going to be gray, but I didn't really like the monotony of it, so later I went back and added just a little bit of color. Not much, just enough to offset, or just to fix the balance, to give some balance anyway to the amount of color that was in the foreground. Yep. I kind of went through pretty quickly to go with the adding in color. That is, I put the speed to 10 times because I'm just using the lasso tool to select the area I want to add the color and then using the paint bucket tool to fill it in. And I figured that's kind of boring as opposed to actually watching me draw, so that's at 10 times, and then later it'll cut back to 5 times, and the 5-time chunk is why this video is so long, because I did not want to put it all at 10 times because I figured that would be kind of boring and hard to follow, even though it'll make me talk a lot longer. Yeah. In my friend's book, I believe the bear is supposed to be black. I don't remember, it's been too long, but I decided to make it a dark color, but not exactly black, so I could still do some shading and highlights. About the mouth of the bear, I actually had some fun with that. It was a struggle trying to get all the colors how I wanted. And it still wasn't quite how I wanted, but I did like the result in the end. Especially the blood and the saliva. That was pretty fun. I actually showed my mom this drawing, and something like this she would absolutely hate. But she was actually able to commend me on how much better I'm getting, which was nice because usually my mom can't see past the concept. Instead, she just looks at the topic, she looks at what it is, what it's about, what she sees, instead of things like how hard I put on into it. So if I drew something like a demon, she'd get caught up on the detail of it just being a demon. She wouldn't care about how much work and effort I put into it. She'd just not like it purely because of what it was depicting. I may have taken too long to explain my point there, but I figured it was kind of important to me, so. Anyway, I was surprised that my mom actually recognized that I tried pretty hard on this, rather than getting caught up on the details like the bloodiness and the danger and the scariness of the bear. Although then again, some of the things I draw are a lot less tame than this one. So, yeah. In hindsight, I probably could have done more detail with the fur of the bear, but again, I kind of like how it turned out, so no need to go back and add more to this video, right? Shading the mouth was kind of cool. I don't often draw animals, and when I do draw animals, I don't typically draw them with their mouths agape. So shading a mouth in such a pose was very fun. Another thing I don't do very often, or ever really, is doing drop shadows, as complicated as was present in this drawing. For example, the bear paw casting a shadow on Jane's lower torso and leg. I should have probably added some more shading to that area as well as her arm, but I also wanted the bow to stand out a bit, and though it does now, it won't later, so I ended up leaving the hand pretty light so it would stand out, and I also had to give some more highlights to the bow so it would be more visible. Yay, I chattered for approximately 10 minutes. I'm slightly halfway through this. I just had a random thought. Have you ever looked at a bear close enough to see its proportions? I never really did until I started trying to do studies in order to learn how to draw a bear for this sketch. So, what I never noticed before was how big their foreheads are. I mean, I've drawn wolves and other animals, but their foreheads aren't quite as big as a bear's forehead is. And by that I mean the space between the eyebrow to the place where the ears are, generally. And that space is about as long as their snout, which is the space from their eye to their nose, I think. Something like that. And those two sections are pretty similar in length, at least, so it was really fun playing with that shape when I was learning to draw the bears. They've got some pretty big foreheads and little bitty ears and tiny eyes. Big freaking nose, though. And, of course, big mouth. And I noticed they've got a lot of skin, at least on their lower lip. And that was kind of interesting, drawing uh, the bit of the lip that stretched out past the canines on the bottom of the jaw. Yep. I had fun with what are they called? The little feather things on the arrow that are for stabilization. I think I had fun trying to figure out how to shade those. And I kept going over and over and over them. It could be a reason, one of the reasons anyway, why this video is so long. It's because I spent so much time trying to shade those freaking feather things. There's also the bow. The bow I kept going back and forth, making sure that the construction lines for the bowstring and the arrow were still in place so they wouldn't get lost in the coloring. That was repetitive. I'm just thinking, I could have done a lot more detail things, but I figured that more detail given to, for example, Jane's outfit probably would have gotten lost in the entirety of the whole illustration. So I guess it probably was a good idea to leave it where I left it. Of course, I did add more detail because I am me and I can't possibly leave things without detail unless it's a sketch I absolutely despise. I've got plenty of those, which I'm sure people will see whenever I do get around to uploading a sketchbook tour. Speaking of sketchbook tours, I've seen a lot of those, and I have these phases I go through in which I am kind of addicted to watching those. I just find them interesting about all the different ways to fill up a sketchbook page that I never would have thought of by myself, you know? And in a way, it's inspiration for myself to fill up my own sketchbooks, as well as just the fun of seeing what other people have done too, and I can relate because I am an artist as well. Obviously. So yeah, I like sketchbook tours. And I will upload my own eventually. I was also looking into the site Gumroad, I think. I don't know much about it yet, but I was thinking about trying to use that once I get into the habit of using more websites, especially in order to make money, because I am currently making no money. And if I'm going to be an artist as my career, I'm gonna have to make some money at it. I'd really rather not have to get another quote-unquote normal job. If I did that, I would hate everything, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not a social person, so I feel like I'd end up having to get a job at like McDonald's or Subway or any customer service kind of thing. And I have this thing where I kind of have a hard time hearing people sometimes if they don't speak up. And even then, if they do speak up, sometimes it's hard to hear them anyway. And I can only ask them to speak louder so many times before my own anxiety starts screaming at me to stop asking, you're making a fool of yourself. So, due to anxiety, I really hope I never have to get a customer service job. Although being an artist, I would still have to have some contact with other people. In any case, the last drawing I did prior to this one, that had a video with it anyway, was Beauty and the Beast. And I wanted to practice doing a foggy scene. I also kind of didn't know what exactly to do with the ground, so I kind of filled it up with some fog. And I liked how that turned out more so in this drawing than it did in Beauty and the Beast. What I'm doing now, if the audio and the visual components are actually synced, is I'm drawing scraggly little shadows from the leafless trees above Jane and the bear. And I was never sure if it was conveyed, so I'm telling you now that's what that is. It doesn't quite look like a shadow now, maybe, but I lowered the opacity a bit to give it a bit more of a feeling that the things casting the shadows are further away, which is pretty true because they're on the ground and the trees are obviously higher above. So I hope that was conveyed. If not, I'm sorry, it looks so weird. This is what I mentioned, that is, earlier about adding the detail is the shadows from the tree branches. I figured if I added more detail to Jane's clothing afterward, I'm sure it would have gotten lost in the interest that the shadows created. And then, of course, the background needed some more detail to offset the balance. Not sure if that's the right phrase, but to, you know, make it a little less contrasted. Normally I like contrast, but it just seemed so unbalanced. So of course I added some trees that were more crisp and clear to give the illusion of them being closer to the characters. In my head I actually imagined Jane running or standing over one of the tree roots behind her, but that's probably not too clear. If it is or it isn't, it doesn't really matter that much. I think I'm just thickening some of the lines. like trying to give more of a texture for the shadows. To be honest, when I first started doing digital art, I remember zooming in on almost everything and working with the details first. And I realized quickly that that's kind of a bad habit to get into, because if you do that, then you're probably going to mess up on a lot of other details. For example, proportions. So if I were sketching a face and shoulders and everything while zoomed in, and then I started panning around to add the rest of the body, then I wouldn't have the head and the shoulders anymore to use as a reference for the shape and size for the proportioning, and it would look super freaking weird. So if you're an artist too, and you do that, I suggest you try to get out of that habit, because it will not help you, and it will probably make things worse. Just a little public service announcement right there. Oh, I think this is about when I start adding the blood. Maybe. Yep, blood. Blood, blood, blood. I think I added some into the bear's fur too, because I figured the bear would probably be a messy eater. If it even ate its victims, I don't know. Of course, add some to the bear paw too. Maybe it'd look weird if I didn't. And then here's the saliva. I saw a tutorial a long time ago. It's essentially just using a light color, like a gray, for the uh, base, I guess, of the saliva. And then they lowered the opacity and I think made another layer on top of that and gave some shine to the saliva to add more dimension and a wet feeling to it. I kind of had that tutorial in mind when I was working on the saliva on the bear's face. Well, mouth. Not like the saliva's all over its face. That'd definitely make it a messy eater. I had some trouble with that arm there. I wanted it to be clear where the shirt was and where the arm began, but I didn't want the difference to be so strong that it looked like there was a shadow being cast there, so I did a really thin line to separate them. Okay, last minute details I wanted to add. Essentially just some redness to Jane's skin. Because I didn't do that earlier for some reason. I don't know why. I think this is also where I added some highlights to the bow. Maybe. I think I tried to and it wasn't showing up again. So I add another layer and a lighter color and brush the color in, then use the blending tool to make the shine a little less obvious so it would look more like shining wood rather than someone putting shiny paint on a bow. Oh no, the shininess is later. I'm working on the bear claws now because the shape of the claws seemed a little bit too harsh and it didn't have that nice curve that claws tend to have. So I was trying to go back and fix that and I was having a bit of a trouble. But I got it to work, more or less. Well, the video is almost over, so I'm going to go ahead and begin my outro. So, thank you for watching very much. I greatly appreciate it. If you like what you see, then don't be afraid to comment and like and give me any feedback whatsoever. Preferably some nice ones, some nice comments, some nice feedback. I like those. Anyway, subscribe to hug me because I'm lonely and I like hugs. Thanks for watching again, and look at the links. They like you too, so I hope you like them. Have a nice day. Thanks for watching. I probably already said that. Bye.